Hello everyone. In this section, we are going to learn how to deploy WordPress the microservices way. This is an introduction to this section. So, for those of you who are not aware of the microservices or the microservices architecture, let's have a quick definition. The microservices architecture is the process of breaking up a monolith application to several interdependent components. So, let's say that you have a large application, perhaps a CRM, a CMS, or any other web application that serves a large number of users. It contains multiple functions like, for example, middleware, authentication, database connection, logging, and so on and so forth. Putting all of those functions in a single monolith application proved to be inadequate, especially when you want to scale out or scale up. In a microservices way, you break this application to a large number of small components, one for logging, one for authorization, one for database connection, one for the front end or the web end, another for perhaps doing some back end stuff, and so on. And since we have Docker in our skill set, it becomes very much easier to create a container for each of those microservices. So what are we going to cover in this section? We are going to have a simple yet powerful and illustrative example of how to break a WordPress installation into a microservices architecture. So in the first lesson of this section, we are going to learn how we can deploy WordPress the traditional way, like you create a machine, you deploy the PHP component, you deploy a web server, you deploy a MySQL database, and you have a WordPress CMS up and running. Then in the subsequent lessons, we are going to learn how we can break this monolith installation to two microservices, one for the database. We're going to create a database component or a container using Docker. In the last section, we are going to create the other part of the microservices architecture, which is the WordPress or the web part of the application. We're going to create a container for WordPress, and we are going to link them together, effectively turning the monolith WordPress application into a microservices-based one. Last, we are going to see how we can quickly redeploy this WordPress into more and more machines in a fraction of the time that was used to deploy the monolith one. In this video, we are going to deploy WordPress the old way and demonstrate the drawbacks of this approach. Alright, so we are now having a Linux machine and we want to install WordPress. We are going to do this first the traditional way, in the sense that we are just going to follow the steps that are documented on the WordPress website, how to install WordPress. We basically need a web server, PHP, libraries, and a MySQL database. So let's start. We are on an Ubuntu system, so first thing we're going to do is that we're going to do sudo apt update, followed by installing the Apache web server. So it's sudo apt install Apache 2 and Apache 2 utils. Let's add -y at the end so that we are not prompted. Okay, so now we have Apache installed. Next, we are going to install some of the important or required PHP libraries as required by WordPress. So sudo apt install PHP 7.2, PHP 7.2 -MySQL, the Apache module for PHP, the CGI, and the CLI, and PHP 7.2-GD for the graphics library, and then let's add again -y at the end so that the installation does not prompt us for a confirmation. It seems that we have a little typo here. And finally, let's install the MySQL's database server. So it's sudo apt install MySQL-server and MySQL-client. Right, and once the MySQL database server is installed, we need to do some security configuration. So this can be automated by a script that is called MySQL_secure installation. Press enter. Alright, and it's asking me to install the validation plugin. I'm gonna say no for the password, and I'm gonna set a root password. I'm gonna set an easy one. Remove anonymous users, yes. Disallow root login remotely, yes. Remove test databases, yes. Reload the privileges table, of course, yes, and we are now done. Now let's get inside the database itself by issuing sudo mysql-u root-p. Okay, and after entering the password, I'm inside the MySQL prompt. I'm going to create a database for our WordPress installation. So create database. Let's call it WordPress. Okay. And the next step is to create a user for this database, because we shouldn't use the root user for connecting from the application to the database, because it's a huge security risk. So I'm going to create a user for WordPress by issuing the following command: grant all privileges on WordPress, which is the database, dot asterisk to indicate all the objects under the database, the tables, the views, anything. 2, and then let's create the user in the same statement. Let's create WP user. This user is allowed to log in from anywhere, identified by, let's give it a password, WP password, and hit enter. So this command or this statement has created a user for us with a password and also granted it privileges on the WordPress database that we have created earlier. Fantastic. Let's exit from the MySQL prompt, and our final step will be to actually download and deploy the WordPress installation file. This can be easily downloaded by using the wget command. So let's use wget-c http wordpress.org/latest.tar.gz, which is automatically going to grab the latest version of WordPress as of the time of this recording and put it to our current working directory. Hit enter. Alright, and let's clear the screen. If we do ls-ltr, we're going to see that we have latest.tar.gz, which is the compressed installation file of WordPress. Now let's uncompress this file, tar, and then let's point the command to the installation directory or the destination directory under which it's going to uncompress the files by using the -c capital, and let's give it the path /var/www/html, which is the default path from which Apache serves its web files, --strip1 in order to not include the root directory, because this file normally gets uncompressed to a directory that is called WordPress, under which the files of WordPress are placed. We want all the files to be placed directly under /var/www/html. So let's hit enter. Okay. Issue ls-ltr to var www.html. We're going to see that we have the WP installation files or WordPress installation files nicely placed there. Let's give it the correct permissions. So sudo change of ownership -r www-data, which is the service account or the service user used by the Apache web server. We need to give this user all permission on the WordPress installation. So now if we reissue the same command again, the ls-ltr, we're going to see that the files now have the correct ownership and permissions. Finally, we will need to remove the index.html file, because this file is the default that Apache serves when somebody requests the root of the website. We need this to be removed so that Apache automatically serves the index.php. That is the file that WordPress uses for the installation and later on for its work. So let's go ahead and use sudo rm-f /var www.html index.html. Now I'm going to issue sudo systemctl start Apache 2 if it's not already started, and then I'm going to go ahead, grab the IP address of this machine on which we installed WordPress, open a new browser tab, paste it, and of course we have our WordPress setup. Let's choose English, continue, let's go. WordPress is the name of our database. We're going to leave it at the default. Username is WP user. The password is WP password. I'm going to set the database to be 127.0.0.1, and I'm going to click submit. Run the installation. We're going to need the site title. Let's name it Dockerization. The username, let's keep it at admin, and it automatically created the password for us. Let's use that. The admin email, and install WordPress. Okay, now let's log in with the credentials that we have just created. Admin and the password that has been created for me, login. And we have our WordPress installation. Let's create a sample post, add new, welcome to Dockerization. Apps should run in Docker or something like that. I'm going to publish this. Okay, so if we have a look now, we can have our post. Here we go. We go to the home page of the website. We're going to see that we have Hello World, which was the default post, and welcome to Dockerization. So this was the default, or as it is called, the traditional way of deploying WordPress. But now imagine that we want to reinstall or redeploy WordPress on, let's have a look here, we have now a number of EC2 instances. Let's say that we no longer have this instance, we have like 10 or 20 or even 100 instances, and we need to deploy this same installation on those instances. If you are going to redeploy using the exact same steps that we did before, you will be wasting a lot of time, effort, and also you are going to be prone to a lot of errors, human errors, a step that was missing, a URL that was missing, a typo like we did when we were installing WordPress, and so on. Additionally, if you are deploying to other operating systems than Linux, for example, let's say that you have a number of Windows machines, and for some reason your project manager has asked you to clone the WordPress installation that was done on this Linux machine to one or more of those Windows machines. This is a totally different kind of problem. You will mostly find yourself having to install a virtualization platform like VirtualBox or VMware just to get your Linux operating system or Linux platform on the Windows machine so that you can install WordPress on the exact same environment like you did before. Luckily enough, we have Docker, and we are going to see how we can reduce the time required to redeploy this installation to the minimum. It's going to take only a few seconds, as we're going to see, and we're going to see how Docker can greatly help us clone this application to any number of machines, whether they were running Linux or Windows.